Hello, I'm Rob Clementi from Television Education Network. Nick Ruskin from KNL Gates is speaking on long-term injured workers at our National Employment Law Conference in August this year on the Gold Coast. Nick's with me today to give us a sneak peek at some of the issues he plans to discuss. Nick, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about the National Return to Work strategy from Safe Work Australia and its impact on long-term injured workers?
Hello, and thanks, Rob. The National Return to Work strategy of Safe Work Australia outlines the key considerations in what it sees as the goal of employers when dealing with injured workers. And that goal is to return those workers to the workplace as quickly as possible. And the strategy shows that the chances of returning workers to the workplace are enhanced with a number of factors. These are that the employee has a positive view about their workplace, that they have a positive view of their supervisor or their manager, and that supervisor or manager or the HR team are proactive in dealing positively with them and assisting them and talking positive, that there's no stigma associated with having made a workers' comp claim if the injury is a workers' comp claim, and often they are, and that there's a positive culture of at the workplace, and that there's cooperation on the part of the return to work team. All of those factors will enhance the chances of getting the employee back to work, and that's all good. But what the strategy shows is there's a vast difference between a psychological injury and a physical injury. Where there's a physical injury, which of course is easier to identify, perhaps there's less stigma as well, the chances of returning the worker reasonably quickly to the workplace is about 75%. But where the injury is psychological from the workplace, and that is, there's been an injury at the workplace of a psychological kind, or even if it isn't from the workplace, the chances of returning the worker is about 1/3, very different. And that is the experience of employers. When the injury is psychological, it's a very different process, and there are very different chances of getting them back. And when you think of the recent Australian census, which shows that 1 in 10 Australians have some or experience a mental health issues, you can see that, and with COVID as well, mental health issues are a significant issue within the workplace within Australia, and that augurs difficulties in employers getting back to work employees who have a psychological injury, be that from a workers' comp claim, but be it from the workplace, that's particularly difficult, or just having a mental health issue which prevents them from working. Now, the processes to achieve this are complex. There are many rights that employees have, and employers face the challenge of having to navigate an employee back to work who has reservations about their workplace, particularly if it's a workplace injury. They feel a stigma, and the return to work processes are much more complex. The employee and their health provider may set conditions for return to work which are hard to manage because, for instance, they say, well, I can't return to that supervisor or that manager or that team, or these things have to change, or I only want to do this part of the job. And that's hard to navigate, but it also creates potential discrimination issues, because the employee will say, well, I've been discriminated against because it's indirect discrimination, because you could have taken me back to work at the time, but you didn't. And the onus is on the employer to show that they couldn't do so because it would create an unjustifiable hardship on the part of the employer. That's a hard test to prove, and courts have set very high barriers for employers to show that it was unjustifiably hard to return on the conditions set by the employee. So these processes are very difficult. In the end, where you can't manage the process, the ultimate right of an employer is to dismiss the employee. And you can only do that in the case of an injured worker, where after a period of time, because if it's a workers' comp claim, there's 6 to 12 months where you've got to try to get them back to work. After that time, you are able to establish as the employer that the employee cannot carry out the inherent requirements of their job within the foreseeable future, and you base that upon medical evidence. And if it's a workers' comp claim, then the evidence you rely upon has to be separate from workers' comp material because you can't use it. So these are the challenges to get to the end result. But of course, as Safe Work Australia says, the goal is to get them back to work. But with psychological injuries, that's a very different challenge.
Nick, thank you very much. If you want more information on the conference, which is in August, please go to our website. And we hope some of you might consider registering for it so you can learn more on this and other subjects. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening.